Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Pits of Motorcast. It's your host, Dave. I got on a special guest, front engine dragster driver, Hans Jakob. How you doing, Hans?
Oh, pretty good.
How's the weather out in Cali?
Things aren't going too bad. Kind of visiting some family. Just recently moved out to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, so every once in a while I gotta come back and visit family and folks.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're in Arizona, but you're originally from Cali, right? California, right?
Yeah. I was born and raised in Upland, California.
So, how did you get into drag racing?
Well, kind of just it found me, I guess I could say. I've always had a fascination with cars. Going back, even to my childhood. With the Hot Wheels cars, the Matchbox cars that I collected, and everybody built model cars, and I just kind of took a love for cars already in the late '70s and into the early '80s. I had an after-school job with an independent Porsche VW mechanic, and he hired me to kind of do some small chores around the shop, kind of wash parts and mop the floors, and he had a rear-engine powered Volkswagen Dragster, and he took me with to some of the Southern California events, like at the Bug-Ins at Orange County, and we went to Bakersfield, Carlsbad, Palmdale, and I really took a liking to that. And I said, you know what, everybody has something. Some people have football, baseball, and I fell in love with drag racing.
Nice. So, what age did you start drag racing?
I started going down the track in my early 20s when I finished up my Chevelle. That was the first hot rod that I built, and turned out pretty nice. I still have it. I toned it down now, actually a few years back, just to go to some cruise nights and car shows. But it was an all-steel big block 69 Chevelle, and it ran low 11s at 116, 117. I had a lot of fun with that, a lot of learning.
So you started out as a bracket racer, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
Now, how many years did you run at Chevelle for?
Probably for about 1992 to about 95, and I took it off the strip and took the slicks back off and put street tires and mufflers and kind of took the killer tune-up out of it. Back in I think it was around springtime 1995. Super Chevy Show and Super Chevy Magazine, they were going to come back to Southern California for the first time in many years, and they held that event at the Pomona Raceway, LA County Fairplex. And I really always wanted to have a really clean, show quality muscle car to enter in that show, because back in the early 80s, 1983, I was down at one of the Super Chevy Sundays at the old Orange County International Raceway, and seeing all the beautiful cars down there, and I kind of made a promise to myself that, I really would like to, someday build a nice hot rod and participate in one of these types of shows and possibly win. So I really wanted to hold on to that dream, and, it came true for me on that particular event.
Now, with the first car you had, the Chevelle, did you have any success, racing with that car?
Any success?
Yeah.
Made it to the final round of Palmdale one night in a street tire trophy bracket, and I went a little quick. I broke out, but just had a lot of fun, entering classes like that, up at the old LA County Raceway, which is another Southern California racetrack that, disappeared a little over 10 years ago. Had a lot of fun up there, testing and tuning with buddies from a car club. Also in the early, middle 90s, we trailered our cars down to the old Brotherhood Raceway Park and on Terminal Island in the Long Beach area, and it wasn't an over-the-top glamorous facility, but it was a facility, and it wasn't bad. They had good timers down there, and best of all, it was sea level, so it brought a lot of memories back, especially for some of the older guys that raced Lions. So you really couldn't argue with that sea level air for making power.
Now, after the Chevelle, what did you start racing in after that?
I was happy with my Chevelle for many years, but I always wanted to step it up, so to speak. And I've always had a love of the early days of drag racing. I always had a huge appreciation for where the sport came from. And already in the early 90s, I was already attending some of the early nostalgia events like the California Hot Rod Reunion that was held at Famosa Raceway in Bakersfield. And I started seeing history repeat itself. And so even as a youngster, rummaging through car shows and swap meets, I always kept an eye out for some of the older hot rod magazines and Carcraft and such to kind of read about some of those legendary events that rolled out of those legendary facilities like Lyons and Irwindale and Orange County. And I was just kind of always infatuated with that, and I always loved the way the early slingshot dragsters looked, And so as I started seeing the nostalgia thing start gaining, interest and gathering speed, I said, okay, this is my second chance now, because these cars pretty much started disappearing as I was extremely young, so I never really got a chance to see, I guess, what a lot of people call the golden era of our sport. And so I said, okay, kind of like with music and fashion, everything kind of comes full circle after so many years. And I contacted the chassis builder in Southern California, and I got him going on building me a chassis, and took it from there.
Now that became the dragster that you're currently driving?
Yeah, I've been running that probably about 14, almost 15 years now.
Now is that alcohol injected?
Yeah, it's a naturally aspirated big block Chevrolet on alcohol.
Nice. So now with the dragster, have you had some good success with that dragster?
I think I have. I'm pretty content. Over the years, my wife has been with me, for many years running that car, and a long-standing friend of mine that's always been there with me since day one of getting licensed in that thing. And we won two ANRA championships. I think it was 2012 and 2013 in the NE1 class. That felt, really nice. It was always it felt like a good accomplishment, because it's a lot of tough competition out there. And I think it was 2016 I won the California Hot Rod Reunion at Famosa Raceway in Bakersfield. So that was the biggest win that I've had to date, with that car. And a number of, runner-up finishes. You can't win them all, because it's just, like I said, there's a lot of other drivers out there. They got a tremendous amount of seat time and experience, and you definitely got to bring your A-plus game to the table if you're going to go up against some of these, more veterans.
Now, have you gone head-to-head with Chad Campion a lot?
I'm not sure if we ran a few rounds in competition. I believe we've done some qualifying side-by-side, and he's a great guy. I remember a couple of years back, him and his father found their way into my pit, and they really kind of took a liking to my car and asked me a whole bunch of questions and some, opinions and advices, and they said they were putting the car together too, to run in that same class. So as most racers, we'll give you the shirt off our back, and we'll give you whatever information that would help you out to be successful. And really, great guys, and it was no more than a year, maybe just a little over a year later, they showed up on the premises, with their car, and it's been game on.
Yep. Yeah, it's too bad there's not going to be no hot rod reunion this year.
Yeah, it's just been a crazy year for all kinds of sports, and there's not much we can do, and we just got to kind of see. It's just slim pickings until this whole virus thing calms down, or whatever the future holds. I'm hoping 2021 will be a lot better year for a lot of things. Not just for different forms of racing, but it's definitely thrown a stick in the spokes, I guess you could say.
Yep, that's for sure, Hans. Yeah, everyone's saying let's just get this 2020 over with and start 2021 already.
Yeah, so it's I don't like to rush time, but yeah, we'll get here, and hopefully things will smoothen out for everybody. And I think a lot of people just in general are looking to get some sort of normality back in their lives and kind of just feel settled once again. And I do think it'll get back to that. It's just going to take probably a little bit of time.
Now, has the COVID-19 affected your life at all?
It really hasn't, thank God, and nobody that I personally know, and no family members. So, so far so good. I just hope everybody, gets through it, and hope for the best. So, I'm definitely not a doctor, and I don't deal with a lot of people that are professional physicians and all. But just makes you kind of wonder. You almost don't know what to believe anymore. Do you believe everything the news or the media tells you, or
Right.
I don't know. So we just take our precautions and kind of follow some rules and guidelines, and take it a day and a week at a time.
Yep. Oh, yeah, once again, I must say, we got to send prayers out to Dom Lagana so he can get better.
Yeah, that's on everybody's mind. You always, as a racer, you just hate to hear anything of the sort. When somebody gets hurt, and it settles in. I remember years ago. I want to say I think it was 2007. I was just suiting up actually to get in my car at Fontana, and the news came across the loudspeakers that Eric Medlin had passed. And it just makes you a believer that nobody's invincible, regardless of the class, regardless of how much safety equipment is implemented. There's always that risk, but life in itself, whatever you do, there's always a small risk. But there's no guarantees. You just follow what you love to do, and try and be safe, and pick good parts. So if necessary, they're going to be there to help you.
Yep. Yeah, hopefully he'll pull through and be okay.
Yeah. Everybody's kind of waiting for some good news. So it's on a lot of people's minds. Accidents do happen, and just you hope there's a good outcome.
Exactly. So now, Hans, what do you enjoy most about being a drag racer?
Probably the competition is very intense. It gets your heart pumping, but I like the whole sport for everything around it. For me, it's not just getting suited up and strapping into a race car. That's part of it, and it's a job that we try and do the best of our ability to pilot these machines to run good numbers, and perhaps turn on some wind lights. But I enjoy it full circle. I like visiting different racing facilities, especially some that have a long history. I enjoy interacting with the fans when they come visit me in the pits. Sometimes we're out there cooking food, and everybody's welcome to hot dog, cheeseburger, whatever we have on the grill. Just the entire history, and being a part of something that has a very colorful past. I enjoy all of it, and all the other racers in all of our neighboring classes. It's kind of like a second family. So when we gather at whatever racetrack, it's kind of like a little bit of a reunion of our own. We get to see people we enjoy, hanging out with, or sitting down and having dinner with. So it's a really welcoming feeling.
Okay, so you like tracks that have history. You should come out this way to the Midwest someday and go to the track, which is like 30 minutes from where I live. It's in Wisconsin, Great Lakes Dragway. They opened like 1955. So yeah, they've been around forever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a track that's been around that long. They've seen all the changes of the sport and how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, so maybe someday you can make it out this way.
Yeah, I'd like to. I don't have very many items, on my bucket list, but I definitely want to, get more out west and back east to visit some tracks that have some history, and I definitely want to see Don Garlitz's museum, down in Ocala, Florida, and maybe catch the Gator Nationals or so, if the timing is right. But for the most part, I've been, Southern California and Arizona area, so. But I will venture, back there, someday.
Yep. Now, what do you hate most about being a drag racer?
What really gets me is in when I make a mistake, I mean, it's the human being, behind the wheel is always it's the variable. So 99% of the time, the mechanical aspect of the car will always do its job. But it's the human element. You got to make such, decisions in a fraction of a second at a pretty high rate of speed, and you got one shot. There's no do-over. In qualifying, if you make a little mistake, okay, usually you get another chance, and you're going to try a little harder or pay a little bit closer attention. But I'm kind of hard on myself, and because I love it so much, and that's what gives you the experience. Sometimes it's eaten me up for days when I've made a mistake as a driver, and I cost the race. My win light didn't come on because I just didn't do something correctly. Whether it was I was just bad on the starting line, my reaction time was poor, or I just did something wrong on the top end that cost me the run. And that's it. You're done for the day, especially if it's on a Sunday. And sometimes that'll eat at you, but it stings, but you don't forget it, and that's learning. And I don't mind losing. There's been many a times where Lady Luck just doesn't drop the card in my lane. Where you look at your time slip on that run and your opponent's numbers, and I look down at my incrementals and say, okay, my light was good, all my incrementals are good, I hit my shift point, and the winning-losing margin was down to a couple thousandths of a second. You did everything you could. It just wasn't your day. So that's all you can do.
Yep. Now, if you could change anything about the class of drag racing that you're in, what would you change?
Wow. I never really thought of that. I'm actually quite content with how everything is structured in all the nostalgic classes. I mean, we're an index class, so there really is no minimum weight or tire size or cubic inch displacement. Off the top of my head, I'm quite happy the way it's set up. I think it's very fair, and it's highly competitive. So I have to say nothing. I don't have any complaints of how the nostalgia classes are organized and set up.
All right, now if you can have your fans remember one thing about you, what would you want that one thing that the fans remember about you?
Now that I was a good and fair competitor, that they could always, if they needed something or to inquire about something, my pits are always open to anybody, for everything. And I carry a fair amount of, some spare parts, whether it be valve springs, roller lifters, push rods, rocker studs, gaskets. I can't have an entire speed shop, go with me, but just the stupid stuff where people sometimes will venture over and say, hey, I need one of these. And I have a master inventory list in my trailer, and I'll go through it real quick and say, hey, I do have one of those. And, people say they offer to give me money for it. Hey, no, look, just take it. If that $couple item that, it's a used part, but it's known good, if that can help you salvage the day or salvage the event, that makes me feel good.
All right, now, do you think you could get any better as a drag racer? And if so, how would you achieve that to become a better drag racer?
Oh, there's always room for improvement. I'm always trying to, try slightly different techniques of staging and reaction times. One only gets better at, something if you stick with it and you give it time, and that comes with a lot of practice. So there's a lot of other drivers that are, older than me, and they've had a lot more seat time, driving these types of cars. So, they have a lot of data also, especially they've been doing, running the same type of combination for many years. Their logbooks are quite thick with information, and that only comes from one thing, making runs over many years and refining your operation and how you set the car up. So, of course, there's always room for improvement. The only thing that's kind of sad, and, that's been going on in Southern California, where drag racing all began years ago, is we've lost a lot of racing facilities over the last, 4 decades. It spanned out pretty far, but our opportunities these days are not as plentiful as they once were many years ago. So as we lose these facilities, if you still want to keep, racing, our distance and our time invested has to be more because we have to travel farther distances, to get the tracks that are farther away now. So it makes it kind of, it's tougher, it's harder.
Right. Now, do you get a lot of advice from these older drivers?
I do. I got my few, I guess you can call them mentors, some of the guys that I look up to that, they, for one, they have more years under their belt, a lot more, seat time. And when they're willing to kind of open up and give me some, advice, what to look for, or how to maybe to become a better driver, or, hey, this seems to work for me, yeah, I'm all ears, because I never discount anybody's advice. I'll take it all in and sift through everything and process everything, and I might make a decision as to, I'm willing to try this on this next run or on this next event. And yeah, there's been some really, really great advice given to me over the years by some great veteran drivers, and due to their willingness to give me some sound advice, it has enabled me to become a better driver over the years.
Now, when you first got into the sport of drag racing, did you have any drivers that you looked up to?
As far as on the pro ranks?
Either way.
Yeah, I mean, when I got into the sport, I was still lucky enough to see the first generation drivers that, basically shaped and formed the sport, like Don the Snake Prudhomme and, Tom the Mongoose McEwen and then Gary Beck, Raymond Beadle. I did enjoy watching Shirley Muldowney run, in the early 80s, in her Pioneer Valvoline sponsored car. I thought that car was just gorgeous. I really enjoyed watching Raymond Beadle in the Blue Max. A lot of cars like that, they were just, I was just in awe because I saw the pictures in the magazines and I got very, very excited when, the Winter Nationals came to town or the World Finals, and wow, I'm really going to see these cars, firsthand, in front of me, and I got so excited I couldn't sleep the night before, so it was quite exciting for me.
Now, did you get to meet any of those drivers?
I did, yeah. I've met a lot of them over the years, and they're always very kind enough to sign some of the items that I brought to the track. And sometimes when I was very young, in my early teens, I would take the time to draw a few of their cars, like Shirley and Raymond Beadle and the Blue Max and Kenny Bernstein, the Budweiser King. So I would draw these pictures of their cars. I'd start working on them weeks prior, and then I'd bring them to the track in a little folder, and I'd seek them out in the pits, and I'd present that to them, and they were like, wow, this is really good, and they'd sign it for me, and I still have those drawings to this day. So it was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed going to the track races, throughout the 1980s and the 90s, and a lot of great memories.
Now, for you, is there ever going to be any nitro in your future?
No. There was one point in time when I made a transition from running Nostalgia 2 Eliminator that's on an 860 index. All the same rules apply. It's just like on Nostalgia 1 setup now. It's just 1 second time difference. When I made that transition, I was still using the 427. It was an all-iron Chevrolet 427 that I put together that pretty successfully ran the 860 bracket, but I really kind of had my sights set on running 760. And so I took that engine apart and I changed connecting rods to aluminum and made a few other minor changes, and I started mixing nitromethane with alcohol upwards of 50% to give me the added power necessary to run the 760 index. And that was fun. It was more work between rounds. But after about 4 or 5 months, I started seeing more rapid bearing damage, and it started to get very costly. So I said, okay, I'm going to back off of this and kind of go back to the drawing board. So I stepped out of the seat for about 7 or 8 months, and I went back to the drawing board and kind of designed a different engine to go back on just pure methanol alcohol, that because it had its leniency also in parts. But it had to be big enough and strong enough to just run straight alcohol for me to be successful to run a 760 index or slightly quicker without a lot of carnage. And I did achieve that.
Now, what was your experience like the first time ever going down to the strip in that slingshot?
It was different to say. It was a little bit, wasn't scary. You were just, I'd been around the sport at that point in time for so many years. I understood what it was all about, what I had to do, and I executed that fine. But it definitely is a little bit of an alien environment when you are in that very narrow cockpit and you're out in the open and that engine's sitting right in front of you. And of course, there are no doors, there are no windshields. It is a lot different. And, but I took to it pretty quickly. But like I've told a lot of drivers that are kind of getting into the sport now, give or take around, the level that I'm participating at, it's going to take about 100 runs before you start to feel very comfortable in the driver's seat. So there's a big difference in the beginning. The car is taking you for a ride, but as you become more and more experienced and comfortable, now you can take the car for a ride, and that is a big difference.
Now, when you take that dragster to the track, do you have any other crew members?
I do. My wife always accompanies me, and she's a big part of the crew. She drives the tow vehicle around, and she's on the starting line, assisting, backing me up. And another good friend of mine, Kevin, he's been with me since day one, since the inception of the idea of building this car. And as I was putting engines together, he'd always come over and hang out in the garage and help me in the trailer. So he's been around since day one. He was also with me the weekend I very first got licensed in it, and from that point all the way up to to today. These are those are my two main people. It takes a minimum of two other people besides me to make this happen. And I have a good friend of mine, Don Hirsch. He's like a drag racing encyclopedia, and he's also the founder of Natural Heads. And he enjoys drag racing, for probably almost 50 years now. And he enjoys coming up and giving us a hand. So we'll have a good time, and everybody has their duties. And if everybody does their duty properly, which they always do, everything fits like a puzzle. Good things can happen.
Now, Hans, do you have any sponsorship or does it all come out of your pocket?
Most of it's all out of my pocket. When I did live in Southern California, I was on Justice Brothers car care products alcohol sponsorship. So they use a lot of methanol alcohol to produce their automotive products, and they always wanted to try and give back to the racers. So typically on Wednesday or Thursday, you could call into that facility and ask if methanol was available. Usually it was, and they would sell it at a dramatically, cheaper price than what it retails for. So every little bit helps, but that was one of them. And I've had some local machine shops that pay my entry fee or give me $100, towards like tow vehicle gas. So little stuff like that, but it's all appreciated.
Yeah, little stuff helps.
Oh yeah.
Now, when you're out there on the track, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions at all?
I'm not really a superstitious person, but in a small way, I have been known to do certain things. Especially on a Sunday, if the day starts off really good and we've won first round and we've won second round, and especially if I've run good numbers and I continue to have lane choice, I don't like to break tradition. It's like, if it's working, don't mess with it. So I'll always try and, for the most part, our team and myself, we do the same thing all the time. We don't deviate. So it's very difficult to make a mistake. But I'll try and always do the same thing on my behalf. So things hopefully go, in the right direction. So we've worked our way into a pattern over the years to where it's routine, and we stick with it, and it makes it simple.
All right. Now, is there a lot of preparation that goes into getting that dragster ready for a weekend?
Not a whole whole lot, but there is time invested. Definitely, I'll start getting things ready sometimes 2 weeks prior. Sometimes I've had to, pull the car out of the trailer, fire it, check for any leaks, put some heat in the engine. I'll pull the valve covers off, check valve lengths, change the oil, do a cylinder leak down check. Just some of the, preliminary things. If I would find something that really raises an eyebrow that I don't think I can, fix within that short period of time before an event, I wouldn't go because, you don't want to go through all the expense and hassle, towing all the way to whatever racetrack and to unload a car that's not going to perform properly. So, get the trailer ready, I try and keep things clean, trailer gets washed, I double check my tool list, everything that, has to be in the trailer, and just, first and foremost, make sure the car is, as much as I can control it, up to par and it's mechanically sound. A weekend or two prior, I'll get all that checked off my list. So I feel confident when I make, the trip that the car is going to do its job.
Now, do you have any favorite tracks to run that Dragster on?
My favorite track for many years, and the track that I've had the most fun at and the most success is definitely at Famoso Raceway in Bakersfield. I really like the feeling of being there, and it does have a long history, and the facility itself it's got a good old school feel. The track itself it's a national event surface. I mean, it's concrete all the way down. It's prepped extremely well for all the events that we've participated in there, and I've never had any complaints. I really enjoy running that track. It's kind of like a second home.
Now, have you ever ran 8th Mile?
I have, basically due to weather conditions. There's been a few events years ago at the old LA County Raceway up in Palmdale where occasionally, being desert, the wind will blow, and they had a motocross track adjacent to the drag strip, and the west wind would pick up some of that sand and blow it across the track, and it didn't make for extremely safe conditions, especially high speed. So a few times they would shut that down to 8th Mile and give everybody a little extra time to kind of reconfigure maybe a tune-up what might work good for the 8th Mile. And the same scenario has happened a couple of times at Autoclub Dragway in Fontana, and it's been known to get kind of windy out there too. And they've shut it down to 8, which I never had a problem with. You don't have to deploy the parachute. Obviously, your speeds are not that great. But racing's racing, it's fine. You just don't get that top end speed, that visual of them scoreboards flying by you at 170 plus miles an hour in the 8th Mile. Cars like mine might typically hit 143, 145, right around there.
So quarter mile is your preference?
Yeah, and I'm like I said, I'm a big nostalgic guy and a history buff with the sport, so I am very happy with the old 1320, and as far as the big show goes, I think that took a lot of excitement out of it for a lot of fans that definitely had been around since the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and had many decades to compare up against. When they shortened it to 1,000 foot, it took something away. So, I understand their, feelings towards that too.
All right, now where do you get all your fire safety equipment from?
My entire fire suit is by Simpson. It's what they call a 328-20. It's kind of like a top fuel or funny car suit. But yeah, from helmet to gloves to boots, it's all Simpson. Another company that I believe in, that they make absolutely fantastic products, is a DJ Safety. I run their lower engine oil contaminant diaper, their seat belts, the parachutes. That's all by DJ, and they make a fantastic product. So I'm definitely always going to use those components on the car.
All right. Now, if someone might listen to this interview and they're thinking they want to drive a front engine dragster, what kind of advice would you give to someone?
My like anything, you gotta ease into something. You gotta take it slow. You gotta get very familiar with it. I did just recently build an engine for a customer of mine that when he started coming up to Bakersfield, he really took a liking to my car and my setup. And older gentleman, and he says, "I want to do this. I've been around this a long time, but this is one of my bucket items." And I built him an engine, and I kind of talked him a little bit down off the NE1 ledge, and I said, let's maybe ease into nostalgia 3 or 2. Get your feet wet, get familiar with the car, because if the mind and body isn't used to the rate of acceleration, that's what it can make your knees knock if you're not used to it. So I would definitely tell somebody just ease into it, and definitely if you don't feel something is right or you don't feel comfortable, you back out of it. You never sacrifice your safety or the race car's well-being for a wind light or a good number or a high mile an hour or whatever excites you. If something doesn't work out, just get out of it. And a lot of racing accidents happen because of human error. They got the mentality, I can save it, and the car gets a little out of shape, and the chassis unwinds, and you get all that power, and the car did not settle down yet, and they smack the throttle again, and it takes off in a different direction, and sometimes crosses the center line, sometimes you can hit, your crash wall, the opposite lane crash wall, and that's definitely, a bad day, and you never want that to happen. Save it, come back another day, or maybe later in the day, but you don't overextend yourself. As more time and experience comes with everything, especially driving these things, you get a feel for it, you become more comfortable, and you kind of know what you can get away with until you don't want to cross that line and say, okay, that's it, I'm out of it. I've had to lift and abort a number of runs over my years, and it's just the thing you have to do sometimes.
Now, what's the quickest pass you've made in the Dragster?
That car's run, I believe it was a 742. It was a Bakersfield one time. I think I was in a good qualifying position, and sometimes I just having a great day, everything's kind of falling into place. It's like, I just want to make a pass, no holds barred. So I would take some of the lead ballast, the weight off the car, maybe crank a few more degrees of timing into it, and just make a good old fun pass as the sun is starting to, get a little low in the sky. And just, that was really a lot of fun. I've done that a number of times, and that sometimes can really make your day. And just no pressure, no stress, nobody in the other lane or that you really care about, because it's not in elimination, and you've already run a good number for qualifying. So now it's time to relax and just take, I guess you can call a victory lap, and just for fun. And that's brought me a tremendous amount of enjoyment sometimes doing that.
Now, what milestones have you reached in your drag racing career?
Winning some events, winning the California Hot Rod Reunion, winning 2 American Nostalgia Racing Association championships. I'm pretty content. It's been a little while since I won something. I had a year or so I was chasing a weird gremlin in my car, but I eventually found that. But it always feels good to win, and just like years ago, I think it was Jim Dunn, Big Jim Dunn, that said in an interview, because it was kind of a similar question. Does a big win like winning Indianapolis, the U.S. Nationals, compared to winning a smaller town track funny car show on a Saturday night? And I really believe what he says is true, because I've felt it. A win is a win, and it really feels good. Winning some of the smaller events, like an ANRA event next to the California Hot Rod Reunion, it still brings a big smile and satisfaction over your face. Your entire crew is happy, and it's a celebration. You did good, and it feels the same. I'm looking forward to, maybe being in the winner's circle again in the future. And, but my goal whenever I go race, number one, I want to have a good time. Obviously, we all try our best. We all would like to win, but there can only be one winner in each class. But if I've had a fantastic time, a great overall experience, and the car did its job, nobody wants to bring back a broken race car after a weekend. That just kind of pours salt in the wound. and you went a number of rounds, and eventually you took a loss. But hey, time slip says you did pretty good. You did your job. It just wasn't your weekend, and that's a good weekend.
Now, what's been one of your most embarrassing moments on the track?
The only one that probably comes to mind, I think it was at one of the, I think at an ANRA race. It was one of my qualifying races, and I don't know, I guess I just lost my concentration. I watched both sides of the Christmas tree, but it was probably it might have been the second qualifying pass. Again, it's been a number of years that the person in the other lane, they rolled in and staged very quick. So I saw both pre-stage and stage bulbs come on right away. Not that that's, a bad thing to do or illegal. It kind of happens. It happens by accident lots of times. And I saw that, and it kind of rattled me a little bit, and I blipped the throttle accidentally, and I rolled past the beams. So I think I was just starting to roll in, and maybe just as I lit the second bulb, I did not activate the trans brake button before I hit the throttle to bring the engine up against the torque converter. I did the opposite. I blipped the throttle, and the car took off right through the beams, and I felt pretty bad about that. And when we as drivers make a mistake, and maybe this is right, maybe it's wrong, but this is just me. Yeah, I'm upset at myself, but I'm a human being. I made a mistake, but I feel bad for my crew. I always feel like when I make a mistake or lose a round, I feel bad for my crew. I feel like I let them down, and they always tell me, no, don't think that way, but sometimes I do, so I don't know. That's just me.
All right. Now, what's been the fondest memory of your drag racing history?
My fondest memory, as me as a driver, or just in overall?
You as a driver.
Probably. Obviously, I felt very proud to win the California Hot Rod Reunion a number of years ago. But I remember one of the years. I think it was the second championship that I won at Bakersfield for the ANRA series. The points chase for NE1 came down from the entire season to the final round of the final event. And that was against a great guy, Alan Hull, out of Arcadia, California. But, the entire season points chase for our class came down to us two on the starting line, the final round of that final event. And, you try not to let pressure get to you, and I block it out pretty good. Hey, just do your job. This is just another run. But deep down, it's not just another run. And we both pull into the beams, and Christmas tree flashed, and we both took off. I was in the right lane, he was, in the left, and I saw a hint of red come out of my peripheral vision. And I'm like, oh my God, I saw red. I look up at my scoreboard on my lane, and the wind light is on, so that told me right away that he red lit. So it was kind of like a bittersweet, but it was a double up. We won the event, and we won the championship that year. So I felt bad for Alan, but I was very happy for my accomplishment and my team being with me throughout the whole season and battling everybody. But that felt pretty good to win the event and tie up the championship on that very, very last round of the season.
Awesome. Well, Hans, I want to thank you very much for taking time to do this interview tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Any final words, thank yous, anything before we close?
I'd like to thank you for reaching out to me. I had a great time, and just to tell all my friends and second family of our drag racing family, hang in there. I know, and I guess this goes for everybody. Hang in there for the rest of 2020, and I know we're still in for a little bit of a roller coaster ride yet, but things have to get better. They will get better. Just keep believing that. And we will be back out on the tracks with, no restrictions, and fans will fill the stands once again, and normality will come back. So I'm looking forward to those days, as we can say, the good old days where we can all camp again, in the pits together and eat and have a good time.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Hans, and I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All right. You have a great night, Hans.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.